"You don't have a reservation." The woman behind the marble desk didn't look up when she said it. "And honestly, I don't think you'd be comfortable here anyway." Jade Ellison didn't move. She stood in the lobby of the Harwick Grand with a rolling suitcase, a confirmation email on her phone, and 2 years of her life built into the room she'd booked at the end of this hallway. She was 28, in a blazer she'd pressed that morning, carrying nothing flashy. Nothing about her screamed money. That was not an accident. Rewind 4 hours. Jade had driven up from Charlotte with the windows down, coffee in one hand, playlist on low. The kind of drive you take when you want to feel something good before something big. She'd taken the scenic route on purpose. Through the foothills, past the kind of old towns with 2 traffic lights and a diner named after someone's grandmother. She needed the air. The week had been compressed and loud, and she needed to hear herself think. The Harwick Grand sat at the edge of Ashford Heights, a small city in western North Carolina that had been reinventing itself for the last decade. Boutique hotels. Farm-to-table everything, a wine corridor the tourism board wouldn't stop talking about. The hotel was the crown jewel of it, 8 floors of limestone and black iron, a circular driveway with actual boxwoods trimmed into spheres. The kind of place that made you feel, just driving up to it, that something significant was about to happen. Jade had booked the presidential suite, not because she needed to show off. She genuinely did not care about that. She'd booked it because it had a corner balcony with a view of the entire valley, and she had a proposal to finish, and she worked better when she could see something that reminded her the world was large. She'd also booked it because she owned the building, not the whole building. Technically, her company did. Ellison Acquisitions had purchased the Harwick Grand 9 months ago as part of a portfolio deal. 12 mid-size boutique properties across 6 states, all acquired quietly from a hospitality group that had overextended itself. Jade had never visited in person. She'd seen the numbers, read the inspections, approved the management retention plan, and moved on to the next deal. She'd wanted to see the place the way a guest saw it first, before anyone knew who she was. She'd asked her assistant not to send any notice. The front desk hadn't gotten the memo, because there was no memo. Just a woman, in a blazer, walking in with a rolling bag and a name on a reservation that nobody had bothered to pull up. The woman behind the desk was named Deborah Finch, Assistant Director of Guest Experience. According to the placard beside her monitor, she had reading glasses pushed up into her silver-streaked hair, and the particular energy of someone who had decided, early in her career, that her job was to protect the hotel from people, rather than serve them. She looked at Jade the way people look at a stray cat that has wandered into a clean kitchen. "I'm sorry," Jade said, setting her phone on the counter with the confirmation number visible. "If you want to pull up the reservation, it's under Ellison's ELLISON. Deborah glanced at the phone without touching it. "We don't have anything under that name for tonight." "Can you check again?" "I just did." She hadn't touched the keyboard. Behind Jade, the lobby was doing what hotel lobbies do on a Friday evening. A couple wheeled matching luggage toward the elevator. A man in a sport coat laughed into his phone near the fireplace. A bellman in a burgundy vest moved, with practiced efficiency between the door and the concierge cart, nodding at arrivals, holding doors. Jade noticed him noticing her. Not unkindly, more like a man who had seen this particular dynamic before and had learned to recognize the setup. His name tag said Renford. He was maybe 60, with close-cropped gray hair, and the kind of posture that comes from decades of doing physical work with dignity. He caught Jade's eye for a half-second. He didn't smile. He just gave a small, slow nod that said, "I see it. I'm sorry." Jade turned back to Deborah. "The confirmation number is right there," she said. "Room 801, presidential suite. 2 nights." Deborah finally looked at the screen. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the energy of someone performing a task they'd already decided was pointless. "I'm seeing a booking attempt from a third-party platform," she said. "But we don't honor those for our premium rooms. There must have been a miscommunication." "It wasn't a third party. I booked through your direct portal. Well, Deborah folded her hands. Our presidential suite is a very particular accommodation. We have standards for that room. It's typically reserved for our long-standing members and corporate partners. I'd be happy to see if we have something more. She paused, selecting the word carefully. Appropriate for your stay. There it was. Not loud, not ugly. Polished and deniable, the way the worst versions of this always are. The kind of thing that floats right past the security cameras with its hands clean. Jade set her second hand flat on the counter. What does appropriate mean? She asked. Her voice was level, the kind of level that takes practice. Deborah smiled. Something that fits what you're looking for. I'm looking for the room I reserved, and I'm trying to help you find something suitable. Deborah's smile stayed perfectly in place, like a painting bolted to a wall. We have a lovely room on the 3rd floor. I'm not interested in the 3rd floor. A man appeared at Deborah's elbow like he'd materialized from the carpet. His name was Grant Holloway, director of hotel operations, and he wore a suit that fit slightly too well for someone who spent his days in a building and not a boardroom. He had the face of a man who had spent his entire career learning how to make people feel small while technically saying nothing rude. Is there a problem here? He said, not to Jade. This guest is having trouble with her reservation, Deborah said. Guest, not the guest's name. The small erasure. The move that signals, you are not a person here, you are a situation. Holloway turned to Jade. His eyes moved across her, the blazer, the rolling bag, the phone on the counter, in a way that was faster and more comprehensive than he probably thought it was. Mr. Jade started. Holloway. He didn't extend a hand. Mr. Holloway, I have a confirmed reservation for the presidential suite. Your colleague is telling me you don't have it. I'd like someone to actually look. We take reservation integrity very seriously, Holloway said. Which was not an answer. Our suite accommodations do require pre-verification for certain booking categories. If your reservation was flagged for what? A pause. The kind of pause that has a lot of meaning packed into it. Standard process, he said finally. Why don't we find you something for tonight and get the booking team to sort it out on Monday? It's Friday evening, Jade said. Exactly. He smiled. Like that explained something. This was escalation 1. Not violent, not illegal on its face. Just 2 people in a luxury hotel making a decision, in real time and in public, about who got the good room and who got redirected to the 3rd floor. And the lobby full of guests going about their evening, and not one of them looked over. Not one. Jade's younger sister, Camille Ellison, was sitting in the lobby chairs, pretending to read a magazine. She was 24 and had absolutely no poker face, which is why Jade had told her not to say anything under any circumstances. Camille lowered the magazine exactly 2 inches, and her jaw was doing something it shouldn't be doing. Jade gave her one look. Camille raised the magazine back up. I'd like to speak with your general manager, Jade said to Holloway. I am the senior operations director. Anything the general manager can address, I can address. Where's the general manager? Not on property, this evening. Jade looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the marble counter, which was very clean and very expensive, and attached to a building her company owned outright. All right, she said. Then let me explain something. Holloway's chin came up a fraction. He was expecting a threat, a scene, a raised voice, the thing people do when they've run out of options and want to fight. Jade did none of that. She picked up her phone. She scrolled to a contact and dialed. She put the phone to her ear while Holloway watched with the expression of a man who had correctly identified the incoming weather, but still didn't think it would rain on him. The line connected after 2 rings. Jade. The voice on the other end was dry and unhurried. A woman's voice, with the particular brevity of someone who had been in the middle of something and didn't consider this an interruption.
Expect you tonight, Rachel?
Jade's eyes didn't leave Holloway's face. I'm standing in the lobby of the Harwick Grand. I need you to pull the acquisition documents for the property, specifically the operational authority clause and the current management contract. Can you send those to the front desk terminal here? A short pause. You okay? Perfectly fine, Jade said. Just doing a site visit. Give me 3 minutes, thank you. She ended the call. Holloway was watching her the way people watch something they don't understand yet. The edges of his certainty had gone blurry around the corners. That was my legal team, Jade said. He almost laughed. Not quite. You called your lawyer because we can't locate your reservation. I called my counsel, Jade said. Because I wanted documentation sent to this desk. You'll understand why in a few minutes. This is highly unusual. It is, Jade agreed. Deborah had gone very quiet beside him. Her hands were no longer folded. One of them had drifted to the edge of her keyboard. Over by the elevator bank, Renford the bellman had stopped moving. He wasn't looking at them, but he had stopped moving, and he was standing at an angle. That meant he could hear everything and see everything. And he had probably been in this lobby long enough to know exactly where this was going. And then, there was the woman at the bar. Her name, it would turn out, was Tricia Waverly, and she was a member of the hotel's private dining club, which meant she spent a lot of Friday evenings in this exact spot. She had noticed the interaction at the front desk. Approximately 30 seconds in, she had pulled out her phone and opened the camera with the quiet satisfaction of someone who expected to be entertained. She was framing the shot. Jade's back, the marble counter, the 2 hotel employees standing in their expensive positions of authority. Tricia thought she was capturing something she understood. She was wrong. But she didn't know that yet. You're making a scene, Holloway said, dropping his voice to a hiss. The lobby performance was over. This was a different register now. The one reserved for private threats that couldn't be replicated in writing. I don't know who you think you are, but this is a private establishment, and I am well within my rights to ask you to step back and let us manage our own. Whose name is on the door? Jade said. A beat. What? The name on the masthead, Jade said. The operational entity. Whose name is that? Holloway blinked. Harwick Hospitality Partners has managed this property for? Managed it, Jade said. Past tense is right. Harwick Hospitality's management contract was renewed pending the acquisition review. She paused. The acquisition closed 9 months ago. The renewal was not executed. Holloway's face did something complicated. That means, Jade continued, perfectly calm, the way you get calm when you have done the work and you know the math, that the management contract currently in operation is a month-to-month extension, terminable with 30 days written notice. She looked at him. That's a standard clause. It's in the original filing. The terminal behind Deborah chimed. A document was loading on her screen. She stared at it. The letterhead read, Ellison Acquisitions, LLC. Deborah's hand came off the keyboard slowly, like she was moving away from something hot. Holloway moved toward the desk. He read the first paragraph. He read it again. His face didn't fall dramatically. It did something worse. It went very still, the way a person goes still when they are trying to figure out how bad the damage is before they react. That's, he started. Our corporate acquisition filing, Jade said, and the deed transfer, and the current operating authority documentation. All timestamped, all notarized, all sent from my legal counsel's office. She picked up her phone from the counter. The name at the bottom of page 3 is mine. The lobby had not changed. The man by the fireplace was still laughing into his phone. The couple with matching luggage had made it to the elevator. The jazz coming from the bar speakers was doing its best impression of a normal Friday, but the front desk had gone very quiet. Renford had walked slowly and without being asked to a position just behind Jade. Not close, not intrusive, just present, the way certain people position themselves when they've seen something unfair and want the room to know there's a witness. Holloway's voice, when it came back, had lost its architecture, the whole careful structure of it, the authority, the mildness, the deniability. It had gone somewhere, and left behind a man who was doing math he didn't want to finish. There may have been a misunderstanding, he said. I'd like to walk you through exactly what happened, Jade said. since you're senior operations director and presumably responsible for what occurs on property." She looked at him steadily. "You told me my room was unsuitable. You told me a confirmation from your own portal was invalid. You offered to find me something appropriate on the 3rd floor. You declined to locate the general manager. And Miss Finch," she looked at Deborah, "never once entered my name into that system." Deborah said nothing. "I want to be clear," Jade said. "I'm not raising my voice. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm describing what happened in the last 15 minutes, in this lobby, in front of approximately 40 people." She looked around the room as she said it. 1 or 2 people near the fireplace had stopped pretending not to listen. Tricia Waverly at the bar had stopped framing her original shot and was now watching the screen of her own phone with an expression that was shifting from entertained to alarmed, because she had been filming. And what she'd filmed was not what she had expected to film. "My sister's going to come over here now," Jade said. Camille appeared at her elbow. Immediately, the magazine abandoned somewhere on the chair. "She's going to document the timestamp on these documents," Jade continued, "and the name on this reservation, and I'd like both of you to remain in this lobby while I place one more call." She looked at them. "You can sit down if you'd like." Neither of them sat, but neither of them moved. The call was to Gerald Park, her regional director for the Southeast portfolio. He answered on the first ring, which he always did for Jade, because he had been with Ellison Acquisitions for 4 years, and he understood how things worked. "Gerald," she said, "I need you here." "How long?" 20 minutes. "Pulling up now," he said. No drama. Just a man who had been interrupted doing something else and had chosen without hesitation to stop doing it. Jade set her phone on the counter a second time. Grant Holloway was watching her with the specific expression of a man standing on a trapdoor. He knew what the floor beneath him was made of. He just hadn't worked out yet that it had already opened. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "I want you to think about this moment, the way you're standing right now, the words you used when you came to this desk. Think about all of it." He said nothing. "Because I'm going to be making a lot of decisions about this property over the next few months," she said. "Staffing, management structure, service standards, everything. And I came here tonight specifically to see how this place treats people when nobody important is watching." She let that settle in the lobby air. "I got my answer." Let's pause here for just a second, because there's something that needs to be said about what happened next, and about what didn't happen. Jade Ellison did not scream. She didn't cry, and she didn't make a speech. She stood at the counter of a hotel she owned and was treated, for 15 minutes, like she didn't belong in the room she had purchased, and she handled it with a stillness that most people, if they're honest with themselves, aren't sure they'd be capable of. But here's the thing. Jade had a deed in her jacket pocket, metaphorically speaking. She had Rachel on speed dial. She had the math on her side. Not everyone does. But we'll get to that. Gerald Park arrived in 18 minutes. He was 50, compact, in weekend clothes, carrying a laptop bag and moving like a man who had covered ground in a hurry. He walked directly to Jade, bypassed the front desk entirely, and said, "I'm sorry, I should have been here for this." "You're here now," she said. He turned to Holloway and Deborah. His voice was quiet and specific. "My name is Gerald Park. I'm the Regional Operations Director for Ellison Acquisitions. I have full authority to act on behalf of ownership." He looked at them both. "I need both of you to step into the back office now." Holloway moved. Deborah moved. People do, when the sentence has that particular shape to it. Gerald paused before he followed them. He looked at Renford, who was still standing near the elevator bank. "You've been here a while," Gerald said. It wasn't a question. 11 years, Renford said. "What's your name?" "Renford Oakes." Gerald made a note in his phone. "Thank you, Mr. Oakes." Renford nodded once. The kind of nod that carries 11 years in it. The back office conversation took 40 minutes. Jade sat in the lobby with Camille, who had finally been allowed to say something and was making up for lost time in a whisper that wasn't quite a whisper. The jazz kept playing. The bar kept pouring. The lobby did what lobbies do. Tricia Waverly had put her phone away, then taken it back out, then put it away again. She ordered another drink and stared at the counter with the expression of a woman doing uncomfortable arithmetic. What she'd filmed was already on her phone. A woman at a desk being turned away from a room she'd booked. 2 hotel employees being calm and reasonable sounding and completely hostile. And then, the turn, the call, the document, the shift of every molecule in the lobby. She'd started filming to watch someone be humiliated. She'd ended up filming something else entirely. When Gerald came back out, his face was the particular kind of neutral that takes training to maintain. "Holloway is suspended pending review," he said to Jade. "Effect tonight. I've initiated a formal HR review for Finch as well. The suite is ready." He handed her an actual key card. "I upgrade you to the penthouse. It's the best view in the valley." "I didn't ask for an upgrade." "I know," he said. "Consider it an apology from the company. Which is to say, from you to yourself, which is awkward." He said it without smiling, which made it funnier. Camille made a sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. Jade took the key card, but before she went upstairs, she walked over to Renford. He was standing by the card again, back to work, hands folded. He looked at her when she came over and he didn't look away. "How long has it been like this?" she asked him. Not accusatory, just asking. Renford was quiet for a moment, 11 years of quiet. "Long enough that people stopped expecting it to change," he said. "But not everyone. Some of the staff still file reports. They go somewhere and sit." Jade nodded. "I want to see them. All of them." Renford looked at her the way you look at a sentence you've been waiting to hear for a long time. "I'll make sure you get them," he said. She started toward the elevator, then stopped. "Your name's Renford Oakes," she said. "Not a question." "Yes, ma'am. I'm going to remember that." She said it the same way you'd say a thing that was true. He understood it completely. The video hit social media the next morning. Tricia Waverly had sat with it all night. Then she posted it anyway, but not the way she'd intended. She titled it something different than she'd planned. She wrote a caption she hadn't expected to write. She admitted, in plain language, what she'd been doing when she started filming, and what she'd ended up watching instead. She said she was ashamed of the first part. The post got 40,000 shares in 6 hours. People had questions. The hotel's name was in every caption. Jade's own attorney issued a brief statement, confirming the ownership, confirming the investigation. Gerald Park gave a 10-minute on-record interview to a local reporter, methodical and specific. He named no one, but he let the facts do the work. The facts were good at their job. By Monday, the review view had surfaced 4 formal complaints about the front desk team that had been quietly deprioritized over the previous 2 years. It surfaced a pattern, not of shouting or slurs, but of quiet redirections. Convenient technical difficulties with reservations, rooms suddenly unavailable, suite upgrades that never materialized for guests who looked a certain way. The kind of discrimination that is very hard to prove one incident at a time, and very obvious when you line them up in a room and look at them all at once. Grant Holloway's contract was terminated for cause. The clause he violated was under conduct consistent with hotel values. He had violated it in the lobby on a Friday evening in front of 40 guests, and one woman with a camera who had accidentally filmed the whole thing. Deborah Finch resigned before the review concluded. She cited personal reasons. The personal reason was that she had looked at the same pattern in a room with the HR team and understood what it meant. Formal complaints that had been prioritized were reopened. 3 of them resulted in settlements. The guests who'd filed them had each been turned away from premium bookings for reasons that were stated as technical and were not technical. Gerald Park oversaw the operational restructuring personally. New management standards, new training, new review process. Real consequences written in plain language. And Renford Oakes, 11 years of carrying luggage and watching and not being able to do anything about what he saw, was offered the supervisor role he had applied for twice, and been passed over for twice. He took the job. He was by all accounts very good at it, because he had spent 11 years paying attention to what the job actually required. Jade returned to the property 6 weeks later. Unannounced again. Different blazer, same rolling suitcase. She walked in through the main entrance and stood in the lobby and looked at it. It felt different, not because the marble had changed, or the jazz was different, or the boxwoods were a different shape. It felt different because the people moving through it carried themselves differently. The staff, the guests, the specific texture of an institution that had been told, from the top, that the old way of doing things was over. Renford was at the door. He saw her before she was halfway up the drive, and he held it open and said, "Mrs. Ellison, welcome back." She stopped in the doorway. "How does it feel?" she asked. He thought about it for a second. "Like we finally have the right kind of quiet," he said. She nodded. She went inside. Now, here's the part that's harder to say, and the reason this story is worth telling honestly. Jade Ellison had something that people don't have. She had the deed. She had Rachel on speed dial. She had the documentation, the history, the math, the exit. When Grant Holloway looked at her like she didn't belong in that lobby, she had a legal filing that said otherwise. Most people don't. Most people who get quietly redirected to the third floor don't own the building they're standing in. They just have the humiliation and the long drive home, and the question that follows them for days. Did I misread that, or did that really just happen? And the answer is usually, no, you didn't misread it. You saw it exactly right. You just couldn't prove it in a room. The fantasy in this story is that the woman at the counter happened to own the place. The truth in this story is everything else. The way the lobby went quiet and kept eating. The way Deborah Finch looked at a confirmation number and decided not to see it. The way Grant Holloway's voice changed registers when he thought no one important was watching. That, all real. That happens in real lobbies, at real front desks, to real people who don't have a Gerald Park to call. The hero of this story wasn't only the woman with the acquisition documents. It was Renford Oakes, who had been standing in that lobby for 11 years, watching it happen, who had filed his own reports that went somewhere to sit, who had never been able to stop it, and who, on a Friday evening, walked to a spot behind a stranger's left shoulder and stood there. He didn't own anything. He just refused, one more time, to look away. That's the part you can copy. You probably don't have a portfolio of boutique hotel properties, but you've got eyes. You've got a voice. You've got a phone that records and legs, that can walk towards something instead of away from it. And sometimes the most powerful thing in a room isn't the person with the most standing. It's the person with the least deciding that this time they're going to stand anyway. So, here's what I want to know. Have you ever been in that lobby? On either side of it, have you been the one turned away from a room you'd earned? Or have you been the one sitting nearby, trying to figure out whether to say something? Drop it in the comments. Tell me what you did, or what you wish you'd done. I read them. If this one hit something in you, you know what to do. Like it, share it, subscribe. Because around here, the documentation always wins in the end. And here's the last thing. Justice in this story wasn't a woman screaming across a marble counter. It was a woman who refused to shrink and then turned around and made sure the next person who walked through that door was standing somewhere fair. That's the move. Not just winning. Opening the door.